When I was asked to do this message for today, I couldn't help but think, you know what? That's the way that God has impressed upon my heart, that there's some things that have to just be better than normal. Better than normal, because better than normal means that we are choosing God's wisdom over worldly wisdom. We've been going through our series here at 1010 Uncommon. We've looked at the book of Proverbs. We've been given a bunch of tools on how to live wise in this world, things to consider with our thoughts, with our actions, with our words, with our feelings, with our money, with our bodies, to not lean on our own understanding of the Lord, but to seek Him to be the source of that clarity of what wisdom looks like. I don't know if many of you know, but when I first came back to faith and I moved to Georgia, Psalms and Proverbs where God led me to start and really dive in to get to know who He was and how to live the life that I was beginning to say yes to. Because I didn't have a lot of tools like that growing up in different ways. So I praise Him for that. And this whole series has just been incredible to just really take the time to dive in and hear even more about what He means about this. So we've seen the difference of two women, woman Folly, who calls us to her to be with me, and I will satisfy you and give you what you want. And then there's woman Wisdom who says, listen, think about this before you act. There are consequences and others can be affected by your choices. So when we look at that better than normal, what we think becomes what's normal, okay? But what God says is better than normal. His wisdom can only come from a relationship with Him. The new norm, a statement that's floating around these days, And I know for me, my new norm, back in the day was getting into the Word and trying to figure these things out, And then, there's all of us now just trying to figure out the new norm of the current, trying to figure out schedules and working from home and having students at home and our kids are at home, where some have lost jobs, some have lost loved ones. It has been an incredible year for all of us in so many different facets. And then, to hear that studies are showing us that mental health and suicides have increased because of the stresses that have taken over. So today, we're going to be looking at Proverbs 31, where we find there's two women of influence again. We'll look at some wisdom that a mom imparts on her son in verses 1 through 9. Then we'll focus on verse 30, that we read in the writing described as the wife of noble character. If you can turn with me there to Proverbs 31. Verse 1 and 2 say, the sayings of King Lemuel, an inspired utterance of his mother, taught him, listen, my son, listen, son of my womb, listen, my son, the answer to my prayers. Theologians have differing views of who this king was. His name isn't recorded in any other place of leading and ruling any part of the country. But since most of the Proverbs have been written by Solomon, this could have been a term of endearment that his mother had given him. King Lemuel, meaning devoted to God. I call her daughter Emily, my sunshine. And when she was little, I used to call her Princess Emily. She still brightens my world, but the reason I used to call her Princess Emily was because I wanted to instill in her the value of who she was and how incredible it was that she was a part of God's family. And that made her valuable and royalty because of Him. King Lemuel could have also been a pen name. Could have been a pen name that he was referring to that term of endearment. Kind of like we talk about wearing our different hats. He could have been wearing his hat, his sun hat, remembering these things that his mother had told him and that he was going to put into practice. So parents, Have you ever had a moment that it seems like your kids just aren't listening? Okay? Or maybe some of you as teachers. These kids are just not listening. You've told them time and time again, maybe to turn that light out or do that homework or pick up that toy or call me when you get there or don't you use that tone with me, just to mention a few. So stating that 3 times in verse 2, that she states 3 times, listen, listen, that means there's an importance here. This is a zip-it moment. This is a zip-it moment because you need to pay attention to the message that I'm about to give to you. And the beauty in this was that this wasn't just any old mom or just a caregiver, but this was his mother. By saying that she, son of my womb, meant that I pretty much brought you into this world. And I have a commitment to God and to you to raise you in these ways. So, okay? That mom was giving him the opportunity to listen. Listen up. Isaiah 42:20 says, "You have seen many things, but you pay no attention. Your ears are open, but you do not listen." God is calling us to listen up. Listen up, especially in this past year of so many different things that have fighted for our attention and held us captive to thoughts and depression and just things that have totally taken over us at times. Okay, but he's saying, listen up. I got something that I want to tell you. So if you ever witnessed anybody going the wrong way on the road? Okay. So with where our house is located, we're at the corner of Erie and Stanbridge, and our light at the corner, there's every once in a while somebody goes up there and you can only go left, but there's been a time or two where someone's going to the right. And there's no time to warn them to not go that way or anything. And praise the Lord, we haven't ever witnessed any accidents. But we've definitely heard some horns honking. And then we've also witnessed those people turning around, driving by our house kind of. So, and I had to laugh when I was typing that up the other day. That's all I heard out the window was honk, honk, honk. So I just thought that was too funny. But the point of that, we must pay attention and be most careful. Hebrews 2:1 says we must pay the most careful attention, therefore, of what we have heard, so that we do not drift away. To stay connected to the vine of Christ. Commentary reads, "The wise person is one who takes God into account. They realize their own limitations and their need for divine guidance. They listen to and apply what God has revealed to their own life. The foolish person believes they do not need God's help. They close ears and their mind to God's revelation. They go on their way. The wise person becomes a success eventually, but the fool suffers destruction." So as we move on here, and Mama is saying to King Lemuel here, in verses 3-7, look, these are the things you need to pay attention to. This is what's going on. She's pointing out what's going on in his life. Do not spend your strength on women, your vigor on those who ruin kings. It is not for kings, Lemuel. It is not for kings to drink wine, not for rulers to crave beer, lest they drink and forget what they had decreed, and deprive all the oppressed of their rights. Let beer be for those who are perishing, wine for those who are in anguish. Let them drink and forget their poverty and remember their misery no more. This list of what holds his attention and that was ruling his life, he's living the rock star dream. He's got the women, he's got the partying, he's got the money. She's encouraging him to recognize that there is a better way for him. There is a better way for him. Rulers before him had made bad decisions. Ones that partied it up, King Xerxes and Esther. Noah, his father David. They made some poor decisions with the clouded view of the effects of alcohol and women. And these things from the believer's perspective, I think sometimes we can be like, duh, I know I need to stay away from that kind of stuff. Okay? But taking a step back, that where has our view gotten a bit clouded? Where have maybe things of this year consumed us and caused us to lose focus? Where have we let things affect our decisions? Where have we turned to something or someone in effects to escape pain, to feel loved, to find happiness? Maybe we turn to entertainment, binge watching, gaming, scrolling, seeing what everyone else is up to, and then finding ourselves depressed and disappointed because their life looks so much better than mine. Maybe we enjoy productivity, seeing results. All these things don't always start out bad. They start out okay. Okay? But then it ends up going in a different way. So who has been a voice in our lives to say, listen up, you're going this way and there's a different way to go? Or could it be that there is someone you're being called to share some truth and love with? So are we hearing or are we sharing? But better than normal means we've got to face it. In order that sin might be recognized as sin, it used what is good to bring about my death, so that through the commandment, sin might become utterly sinful. It's Romans 7:13. If we don't recognize and face what sin is present, then it becomes a silent partner with us. It sticks around. Like when we're eating some French fries and some ketchup drips on our shirt, and we don't see it. Sometimes it takes someone else to point it out. You've got some ketchup on your shirt. Then, and only then, can you make that effort to dip your napkin in your water and wipe it off. If we are going to live a better than normal, we've to listen and face it. Solomon's mom goes on to say, speak up for those who cannot speak for themselves, for the rights of the destitute. Speak up and judge fairly. Defend the rights of the poor and needy. Every day we see and hear about the needs around us, especially in our community. We as 1010 have made a bunch of efforts in different ways and attempts to meet these needs in word and in deed. And it's been an incredible journey to see what God is doing in the lives of those here in our community and abroad. So we thank the Lord for that. And some of us, when I think about speaking up, some of us, that's not an issue for us. Some of us, it's more the issue that we got to listen, and some of us have to speak up. So there's this thing there's this dance that's going on here. So Leviticus 19:15 says, do not pervert justice. Do not show partiality to the poor or favoritism to the great, but judge your neighbor fairly. Better than normal means I am others focused. I'm in Philippians 2:3, doing nothing out of selfish ambition or vain conceit, rather in humility, valuing others above ourselves. We are all image bearers of God. He values all humanity. No matter what we think or feel about others, that doesn't matter. It's what God says. So recently, I typically donate things that I don't need or want anymore, but recently I attempted to earn a little bit of extra cash on Facebook Marketplace. And I put a winter code on there. And a buyer inquired me with a few questions and shared that she needed a different size. As we continued to talk, I said, well, I'll see what I can do. And she said, the reason that I'm looking for this coat is because I pass a homeless woman every day that I'm going to work. And it's getting colder now, and I want to have a coat to be able to give to her, so that's why I'm looking to buy one. So I was like, all right, look, this one's the wrong size, but then Lord brought to mind Anne, and I knew Anne was getting rid of some coats, and I had a feeling they might be the size that were needed. So I reached out to Anne, and Anne was like, yes, I have them. We got them all worked out. And so this past Friday, I got to go meet Darlene in the parking lot and deliver to her 3 coats that will potentially work for this woman. And I also got the privilege of inviting her to 1010, so who knows if she'll ever show up. She said she might, we'll see. But the wild part was that she said, oh, Grace Lutheran, I used to go there years ago. So God works in such mysterious ways. We just never know the connections we're going to make, But the beauty in what I really saw with Darlene was the fact that she was others focused. She was looking out. She was paying attention to her surroundings. She wasn't just on her own agenda, but she was paying attention to others. So better than normal means we listen up, we face our sin, and we are others focused. King Lemuel goes on to share a final poem in the verses 10 to 31. And as we know, the epilogue and the wife of noble character. In the past, I have wanted to avoid teaching on this passage because it has always seemed so unattainable as a woman, a wife, a mom. I don't like rising early to cook breakfast. Not at all. I'm not a business owner or have the skills to design clothing, just to mention a few. But this woman has seemed so intimidating to me. And so overwhelming, so beyond reach, her list of things that can't possibly all be done. And so this picture of perfection and just seemingly so impossible. But I've come to realize that it's the perfection part that I recognize that's my sin that I wrestle with. I try, but it's not enough, which makes me feel like I'm not enough, and that's a big fat lie. So if I'm in relationship with Jesus, then the truth is that I am enough because he is enough and it doesn't depend all on us. Verse 21, the 21 verses that are here are a bottom line, if you will. As my man always says to me, babe, just give me the bottom line. Okay. So the bottom line, babe, these verses are an acrostic poem that goes along with the Hebrew alphabet in gathering all the characteristics that we've read throughout the 30 chapters before of woman wisdom that we find throughout that entire book. This poem speaks of the characteristics that women can demonstrate in various contexts of life. And King Lemuel states nothing about her intellectual interests or her pursuits because those things were not significant for the purpose of this poem. The purpose was to highlight her wisdom. This poem is not degrading a woman's work outside the home. It addresses a certain kind of woman in a particular social and historical context who had the place of activity that was domestic as a royal. So this is not our to-do list. We see in the verses 10 through 28 characteristics that are listed that wisdom in character is findable. And I'm not going to read through all of these passages, so I just want to let you know and I encourage you to take time this next week and read these and allow God to speak to your heart and meditate on those. And see how he speaks to you too, because I will always say, never take what just somebody is just telling you. Make sure that you're seeking God in his word as well. But this is what it says about the character. Is findable and valuable. Considerate of her husband. She is selective in her purchases. She cares for her family, those who help her, and those in need. She is busy working, not a busybody. She creates things to cover her family. She is prepared for what's to come, and in public, her husband and her are respected because of her godly character and because of the ways that she's choosing to live her life. So when we think of us in this way, could we say that in the circles that we're in, are we being a good representation of who Christ has called us to be and who he says that we are? And what type of legacy are we leaving for our children, for our families, for the people in our communities? It's totally things to think about and to be aware of. Proverbs 31:30. Charm is deceptive and beauty is fleeting, but a woman who fears the Lord is to be praised. Charm can attract, beauty can entice, but they ebb and flow. They ebb and flow with our feelings, with our situations, and so on. And it's fleeting, as it says, that it just goes away. I mean, the reality is, as people, Jeff and I are always like, we're getting older and stuff like that, so things are changing and everything. So that's a thing. But what stands strong and firm is the fear of the Lord. So what is better than normal? Fears the Lord. The quality of wisdom that Proverbs presents is much more than the ability to apply knowledge to various situations in life effectively. It also involves submission to the way of God that is the order of life God had revealed as best for men and women. It is possible for people to think correctly and to speak and act wisely with no direct knowledge of divine revelation. However, people of this type possess only limited wisdom. It's only in relationship with Christ that this wisdom is available and can be lived. It is only in his power. The fear of the Lord is the beginning of knowledge. The key to woman wisdom's greatness is stating that, the knowledge of the Lord and living that out. Ruth is a beautiful example of this. And she's another character that I encourage you to read about. But this woman, she lost her husband, decided to follow her mother-in-law while she was bitter and angry at the world. She didn't know what was ahead, but she did know what was behind. And going with Naomi back to her people, the Lord opened doors for her. Ruth listened to the counsel of Naomi. She pressed on in spite of fear and ridicule from the community. She led a quiet life and cared for Naomi, and the result was she was noticed by a godly man named Boaz, who took her in and redeemed her after the loss of her husband. That there is so opposite of what we see in our world today, because the louder is the better. That's what's normal. Here I am, hear me roar. One commentator stated that a wise woman will enjoy many benefits. Her husband, assuming he is of normal intelligence, will value, bless, and praise her. She will be secure. Moreover, her husband will also cherish and honor her unless he is a fool. So I just want to say, earlier this year, you guys, I believe the Lord spoke to my heart about loving him with all of my heart, my mind, and my soul, and my strength, and to love others and as myself. The truth is, I absolutely love caring for others. But I began to recognize that I wasn't being as kind to myself. A very common thing that I hear that a lot of us women do, we kind of put ourselves on the last part and more an afterthought sometimes. So, there's this big hype with all self-care right now going around, and that's a big hype of, especially like when you're stuck at home and all those kind of things, make sure that you have those times to refresh and refuel and, do your hair, do your nails, do whatever you got to do. Take those, try and get time with your girlfriends and, just make sure you're having fun and redecorating your home, wearing the best outfits, whatever that all might look like. But it's so much more than that when it comes to self-care. For many years, I've done much of what I often have encouraged others to be in the Word, to pray, connect with other believers. The Lord has been and still is my great counselor. He has led me to study his word, in which he has given me so much hope and direction in being a woman, my marriage, parenting, and more. He showed me people throughout his word that I could identify with their hurts, losses, and insecurities. He has given me a heart to care for others and make efforts to show them they are valuable. But I came to this time realizing, not caring for myself, that I had done everything I could possibly do, that I needed to take that step and figure out what's going on here in my head and my heart. So I took the step to reach out to a Christian counselor and just say, hey, I could use some direction. And I believe God led me to her, and it was an incredible 4 weeks of just hearing, just being able to share and open up uninhibited. God really revealed some things for me that I know that I need to heal from, some things that were unresolved from my past that I know I needed to heal from. So I'm in that journey now, taking those steps. But the whole thing is, I had to take the practice of that. I couldn't just sit there in that Zoom call with the counselor and say, oh, well, hey, this is all that's going on. But I had to make the efforts to want to move past what my normal had become. So as we come to a close today, I want to share my heart. My concern for us as women has been that our fight could lead us further away from God at times. He is the one who has made a way through Jesus. His son was sacrificed on our behalf. And the reality is that some of us have a hard time with being women. And we wish we didn't have to deal with all the stuff that's there. But the beauty is that God has designed woman for a purpose. It's not a bad thing. I say this to myself too, because the rap we get at times can make us feel that way. That we are just sex objects, complainers, gossipers, full of emotions, and PMSing all the time. Womanhood from God's view was never to be downplayed, but rather to partner with man and God in the ruling of this world. He demonstrated what in various ways through Jesus, he loves women. He values them. He sent his son to be born through a woman, Mary. Jesus' family relationship with Lazarus, Mary, and Martha, not only caring for them and being served by them, but he allowed them to sit at his feet, to learn from him. He comforted them in their loss. The Samaritan woman at the well, he took the time to listen to her, to see her. As God's family, the church of Jesus, we have to remember whose we are. 2 Corinthians 5:17, if anyone is in Christ, the new creation has come, the old is gone, and the new is here. We've had this opportunity to pause throughout 2020. Have we listened? Have we heard? What are we doing with what we've heard? It is important for us to teach the next generation of the ways of the Lord. The world is constantly showing them the way. That will be the way they go if we don't rise up and speak. There is a design and purpose that God had for each of us as man and woman when he created this world and us in it. He is the creator of us scientifically and purposefully. We are created male and female. There is a plan and a purpose for us all. Jesus came to give us life and life in the full. So as we choose his wisdom over the world to live better than normal by listening up, facing our stuff, being others focused, and fearing him above all, he will offer not only better than normal, but he will offer us and give us his best. Pray with me. Lord, you are good and faithful.